So flat files are just simple text files, and Python handles those very, very gracefully. And you'll see that it's just very similar to how you read a string, which is just basically a series of strings. And Python treats it just like how you read it from the console. Okay, everything comes from a text file is in the form of a string. When you write it back to the text file, it's always going to be a string. So when you need to do any conversion, you have to do that as well. If it's a file of data, for example, you're going to use that, you just don't have to convert it. So I'm going to go and create a new project in here. And I think we're like unit 7 now. Okay. Alright, let's save this file. And I'm going to just save it, I'll call it flat files. .py. And I'm going to create another file so we can read it from. So just a simple text file. So I'm going to go to my Explorer and create another file here. We can just do Control-N either way. New file. This will be just plain text file. So let's just say this is a file called, I don't know, quotes. Okay, quotes.txt. And let's put some quotes in here. Anybody has some favorite quotes?
Nothing to fear but fear itself.
No. What is that again?
Nothing to fear but fear itself.
Okay. That's a great one. Anything else? I can't think of anything.
Just start coding.
There you go. Bang, like that. Okay. Okay, so Python is cool. Okay, so just look at that. So I have 3 sentences in this flat file. Now, what we don't see here is the carriage return and so on. This file doesn't show you that, but if you were to open this file in like Notepad++, it will tell you the carriage return at the end of this file here. I'm not sure if we can do that. So let's see. See if I go to external source here. If I open the text file in Notepad, if you turn on this paragraph symbol somewhere here, you see that the carriage return, the line feed, and then the carriage return, the line feed. Okay. Yeah, so you can see that in here. So the last one doesn't have it because we did not hit the enter key. Once you do that, it puts that in there, so you can see it. It's not visible, but when you read it in Python, it will grab that. When you read in Python, you're not going to see the CRLF. You can say you're going to see a /n instead for a line feed, a new line. Okay. So I'm just going to put that in there. And this is how also when you write it back to the text file, you have to explicitly put the /n in there. If you don't do it, it's just going to print a long string of text. So that's something you have to do because Python doesn't have a function to write that automatically like Java or C# or other languages. So to make you do the work. Okay, so we have this text file. I'm going to leave it open here, and let's switch over to the Python file. To read a file, so Python uses this very simple function called open for both reading and writing. Okay, and all it does is basically it opens a stream from the program to the external program, which is in this case to a file that it can locate. And in this case, we're putting the same file in the same directory, so you don't need to reference any directory at all because it's relatively in the same location. If you were located in a different direction, location, just make sure you link it to that location. You put the right path to get there. So the syntax is very simple. It takes just I think 2 parameters, and the function is just open. This is something I like about Python. I think it's so simple. Open, right? Print. That's it, right? So open takes 2 parameters. The first parameter is always going to be the file name, or the object is going to be. And you see that sometimes, or in the book as well, you put the file name directly here, and that's okay. Usually you put that into a variable name, and then you just put the variable inside there. Okay. So you put that there, and then the second parameter is what's called the mode, and the mode contains the following. I'm going to put here. These are the modes. Okay. One is it takes an R, lowercase only. This is for reading. Read only is for read only, so you cannot alter its data. And then we have the W. These are the most 2 popular ones. It's for writing, and that will overwrite whatever you have in that file. So it will wipe up everything and then rewrite the whole thing into the file. So be really careful if you use this write command. And not only that, it will also create a new file if it doesn't exist. Okay, if it exists, it will just wipe out that file and then use that file. So if you were to put like W here, then yeah, you can read it and also you can write it. It's a read and write. There is another one called the A. This is for appending. So if you want to retain what's inside the text file, then you want to use the append, so that it will also only write to the end of that the file, always to the end of that file. And then there's another one that I'm not sure the book mentioned this, but there's an X as well. This is for it's kind of good because X is also for writing, but only if the file doesn't exist. Okay, if it exists, then it will not proceed, and so it would give you an error. So this is looking for writing, but only if a file does not exist. Okay, so that's good. That's
does exist?
But only if it doesn't exist. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't exist, right?
Oh, so only it has to create.
Yeah, always a new file. If you put in there, and if quotes is what if it's in there, it's going to say, oh, sorry, it can't. It's existed. So you can't overwrite that one. Yeah, exactly. And then, so again, Python reads both. This is like file types. You have another called T for text only, text files. And then you can also use the B for binary. Okay, so those are the parameters for the modes you can use for text. So by default, it's always going to be text. So when you put inside here in the second parameter, you put read for reading, and if it's a text file, you put the T here. Okay, so it knows that this is a text file. But it's so common that usually we only use a lot of text files, so you don't have to put it there unless it's a binary file. Then you put a B there. Okay, so if it's ignored, it's just one of those 4 modes, then it's assumed to be a text file. It's always going to be a text file. So that's for open file, and then once you make that open string connection, you need to assign that object to another variable on the left side. Okay, otherwise it doesn't know what to do with that one. So depends on what you do with this file. In this case, I'm reading it, and just again, basic conventions, very common to say this is the end file. Okay, it's the file that is coming in for reading. Okay. If you want to write, then you will call it out file. It's going out. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to read this file called quotes.txt, and it has to exist. If it doesn't exist, you get an error called the IO error, and we'll talk about errors later. So now, once this is run, then the end file object, this is an object, points to this file called quotes.txt and the same directory where this flatfiles.py is saved in, where it's located. Okay, so we got that. This is for opening file. Okay, it's not Java, sorry. Bam. So you open the file, and then down here we're going to access the file. Okay, so accessing, you have pretty much just two things. Either you read it or you write it. Okay, and the write, this is probably the simplest one. There's only one function called write. That's it. Whatever you write, you pass to that file, or you will write to it. But let's do the reading first. This is for reading, and reading is kind of interesting. So I guess it has like more functions. You can read the entire file at once by calling this function called read. And then this is a part of the object called the end file. So endfile.read will read everything from top to bottom in that file. And then it will return a string. Okay, so the read function will read entire file. Okay, returns a string. And there is a difference, okay? And usually they all return string except for one that does not return a string. And then you need to assign that to another variable. And usually here you will have either data, or since we call it quotes, you can call it quotes if you want. But let's just say we call it data. And then if you want to see what's in that file, then you just print it out, print data. Okay. And we'll see if that's what we're going to get when we run it. Okay, so you run it, you see that it prints the exactly same text we saw inside that quotes file. Okay, so whatever data comes in is a string. So it includes the character return with it, and so on. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, once you read it, the entire file already, and if you go and try to read it again, let's just say I'm going to do another one here, and I'll call it data 2. Okay, data 2, and I'm going to print that out too. I'll print data 2. And I'll put a text in front so we can know that's just like D2 here. This is the D1, so D1 is pretty much given, but okay, so I read it once, and then I print it out and read again to a different file, variable, and print it out again. Okay, so what happened there? It did.
Do it.
Yeah, why is that? What do you think might? What do you think happens?
And we already used infile.read once.
Yeah, because it's the same object or in file. Once you read it through, now your cursor is at the end of the file. That's where it was. We left it there. So if you read again, there's nothing to read. Okay. So what you need to do is you have to close the file, reopen it again, and read it again. Okay. So there's just something about data streams very different from the other like files. So once you read it, then that the header it's being tracked, and so that's why you don't see it there. Okay. So that's for reading everything, because when we reach the end of the file, and the way how Python can determine if it's the end of the file is the data or the last read whichever that was, returns a empty string. Okay, because as you can see at the very last character here, there's nothing there. It's just an empty string. When you see the empty string, that's the end of that file. Okay, there's no other special character other than empty string. So that's you can also use that to check if it's the end of that file. So that's for reading the entire file. You can also read one line at a time. When you say one line, we talk about from the beginning of a string to the end of that string when it reads the carriage return, the line feed. Then that's one line of text. Okay? Because this could be really long, it might wrap, right? So it's going to be from here to here, including the carriage return, and then it's done. It puts the cursor back here to the next line to read the next one. But that's for reading one line at a time. So down here, I'm going to read it again instead of data 2 here. I'm going to close that file first. So once you are done with the reading, then you want to close it. Okay, so in file, that close. If you don't close it, you leave that open. And if you open it again with another object, which you can, then that stream is being opened. If you open a lot of files, it again consumes memory. So you always want to close it. So close that, and then if I were to do that, then you have to open it again. Okay, I have to open it again to read it. So I'm going to put down here and reopen. So you can see that redundancy there. That's what we learned about functions, right? Use a function to read file, to read it again, and so forth. So I read again, but this time I'm going to call the read line. That's what it means. You read one line at a time. And so every time you do a read line, it reads one line, only it stops there, and then it moves that header, the print head to the next line, and just waits there until you read it again. Okay. So now if you were to go ahead and run this one, it should print, well, the first part we can I guess turn it off. Well, okay, we can just run and see what happens. So if I run it, okay, you see that the D1, which is the first one, reads everything. And then the next one, we close the file, right? We close it, and then we open it again, and now we read one line. The first line, and that's what we get. We get the first line only, printed. So now if I go and then do like I did up here, if I do a, if I copy this and go down here, and let's just say I do a D3, and you read that line again, you put a D3 here. Okay, if I save that. So it's going to do it again, but then if you see that it's going to print one line at a time. Again, D1 prints everything. We close D1, the first end file, and then we reopen it again using the same object. D2, we read only a single line. Read the first line, print it up. The head points to the next line. You read the next line to another variable, print that up, and so here we print one line at a time. So right now, we're not at the end of the file yet. Okay? We know they had 3 lines, right? So the cursor is actually now pointing to the third line right here, right now. It's ready to be read again. That's why we're able to see the data without closing the file, because the header is still there. We still have data to read. Okay? So now you have this option to read one line at a time. So maybe sometimes you don't want to print everything all at once. You want to read each line at a time and check if that line contains certain data that you need. If you do find it, then you can close the file and you end there, right? And if it's not, you keep reading until you find it. You may or may not find it, you don't know, but that's why you need to loop through your file to check it. So instead of doing this manually, you will loop through the entire file to read every line, and you can check that line to see if it has some data in there. So let's just say that I'm going to go and modify this, and we're going to check every line to see if it has the word Python, I guess, right? We could try that. Okay, so I'm going to modify this second one down here. We'll keep the one above as is so we can see the content, But down here, before I read, yeah, you can check the read. It's okay if you want. Yeah, you can read the file first, data, and we want to say while the data 2 is not equal to an empty string. That's what you want to check, because the character return is not an empty string, it's the character return. Okay. So if it's not an empty string, that means there is still more data to read. Okay, so data 2 now has some data. If it's an empty file, then yeah, we reach the end of that and there's nothing to read. So then we can check to see if the word Python is in that string. If it is, then we will terminate the loop and then we're done there. Okay, so first we want to print it out first. We'll say print D2, data 2. And then we want to check to see if the word Python is in there. How would you do that?
If Python in data 2.
Yeah, just like that, right? Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, Python.
Yeah, if Python, the word Python, and we're going to match it in data 2. If so, then we print, or we print it out. I mean, it's already printed. We just say, let's print, found it, I don't know, something like that. And then we can just say, break out of that loop. And let's see if this is true. I'm going to clear my screen down here. And let's run it. Uh-oh. What happened? Is your quote. Is not different with itself. Oh yeah? It changed it, huh? Okay, so you run to an infinite loop. Okay? And the reason why? What do you think?
We're not implementing the read line?
Yeah, we never did, right? Yeah, we only did it once, but we never did that. So data will always be the first line. Okay. So that means we have to do that again, read that inside here. If it's not in the Python, then we need to read it once more. Read the next line. Okay, very good. And then now we should see that now we found it. And once Python is found in that string, and then we print that found it out here, and then we break it, we're done, and then we are out. That's it, right? So that's for reading one line at a time. And this is very beautiful in Python. If something is in something, just use that in the data or in a list. And and I mean to make this painful, but what if I say, oh, you can't use that in data? You have to search for every word, right? So you can do that too. You can search for a word inside Python. I mean, in a text file. I mean, there's no function to read word. But once you read a phrase or a string, you can break it into a list of words, right? You can split it. This split function you can use, and the split will actually split every word, and using a white space as a default delimiter, and it will put every word into a list, and then now you can check in the list if the word is in there or not. So that's another way too. Okay, so we use a while loop to check that line, that file, every and then you have to increment, like you said, you increment that because the while loop needs that increment, incremental to make sure we exit out the loop. You can also use a for loop. You'll see that the for loop will look kind of similar. And I'm going to just copy this, and we'll comment this out. And actually, I don't need this either. For loop is actually much simpler. So here's the for loop. Say for each line in the end file. That's it, right? You read every line in the end file. It will grab every line, line by line, and then we can go ahead and then print that out without using the while. You can print. I use line, so I'm going to use line here. Print the line. We check if it's in the line. If it is, and we print that out, and then we don't need to do increment because it does it automatically in that for loop. Okay. So the end file will actually read it line by line. And we can change this to, instead of Python, we say different words, which are like cool. That's very cool. And instead of found it, let's say found. Yeah. Okay, let's see if it works. You see that it works just like the other one. And so in this way, you don't have to worry about infinite loop, right?
So it defaults to line with for loops when you're reading text files?
Yeah. Yes, when you read a file, yeah, it's going to be equal to a single line. Okay, so we know to read one line at a time, read the entire file, and then there's one more, and I'll comment this out. This time, so we open the file, okay, and then we're going to read, also read lines, but then this time I'll put line equals in file dot read lines with an S. Okay? So the difference between read line and read lines is that this will return a list instead of a string. That's all. So if you print line out, the first line, you should see that it's put into a list. Actually, the whole thing, I was not correct. It does print the whole thing, but it puts into a list instead of a string, so that you can access each line and the element, and you see that the line feed comes along with it as well, because with the character return, and here in the last one doesn't have it. So in that case, if you want to strip off that ln, you have to do a replacement or remove. But that's the difference. It puts it to a list. If you were to read everything into a string, and if you were to convert a string into a list, you're not going to get what you see here. You're going to get every single character into a slot, right? So it splits every single character, whereas here it splits every line into a string in the list. So that's very, very helpful, because especially when you read something all at once, and with a string, it's not that useful, because you cannot go back and change its data, access its data nicely. But with the list, you can access each element. And how do you know how many elements you have? Well, you can always get the size, right? Length of line will give you the total size of the elements you have, and then you should access each of those individually based on that index. Okay, so we learn how to read lines. The next one, you can also read character by character. So this read here has a lot of features. And I'm going to do that here as well. So if you want to read character by character, I'm just going to modify this one to say read. Either read line or read doesn't matter. But we just use the read here, okay? So we're going to read everything in that file, but we read one character at a time. And so you're moving the print head just one character, one space at a time. Okay, white space included. So in here, just put 1. That's all it is. Print one character. Or I want to print, 10 characters. It doesn't matter. Okay, so if you put nothing in there, it reads everything. If you put a number, it will read that many character, and then when you print it out, you only see that single character. N down here. Okay. This is the first part still. So it prints N, and then if you do it again, it's going to print O, and so on. So you get every character at a time. And this is useful for if you want to check if it has a certain character in that file until you find one or something, and then you stop it or something. Okay. So that's pretty cool. So that means you can check it so that I want this file. Maybe your file can only have data points. You don't want any special characters or any alphabets in there. You can check every single character. If it's a letter, then either skip it, don't use it, or something. You can extract data out of that. That means I can go back here. Let's just say I put some numbers in here, coding 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, right? Something like that. And now you can extract all these numbers out. It doesn't matter what's in there, because you can check every single character and extract only the numbers out. Okay, so I'm going to read that file, and I'll use we use the for loop. We use the for loop. It's shorter, right? Let's see if this works. For line and file. So read every line. So we need to check. I'm going to print that line first, so we can see. And I'm going to check the first character of that line. So every line you read it, but you have to check every character in that line, right? So you can have another for loop in here. For C in line, right? For every character in the line, you need to check it. You say if C is digit, I think has a function called is digit, I think, or is the L_num is alphanumeric. Okay, if it's a letter or number, it accepts that. If it's alphabet only, then you put alpha. If it's a decimal number, you put that one there. And so you can see it's a digit. Digit means only 0 through 9, right? Or is it numeric, right? So this is probably the one I want to use. So is it numeric? If so, then we want to say, print that out. Or you can save it to another file. It doesn't matter. And we'll only print that letter out. Otherwise, skip it. Okay. So if this is correct, it should print only 1, 2, and 3 out of that file. And you see that it prints 1, 2, and 3 out of that file. Okay. From that line. And then the next line is, the first line didn't have any, you print that out. The second line has the ABC 1, 2, 3. It prints the 1, 3 out. And then the last line, Python is cool, it prints that out too, but there's no number in there. So that's how we get that. And we didn't put it on a single line because we didn't format that print statements. But you can see, you can check the data you have in the file and extract only the data that you want from the file. Okay, and any characters, even ASCII characters, in there you saw those built-in functions to kind of help you. Okay, so you can see that we can read this one here. Yeah, it's nothing new, right? We just basically, it's a string. Okay, so now it's a string, and then notice that it's a numeric, it's a string. Then maybe you want to add these numbers together, right? So to do that, I would probably go like out here. For if the entire file, you will put it outside in the global space. If it's for each line only, then you will put inside, here if we read the next line. But I'm interested in entire file, so put the sum out here, put 0. And if it's a number, then I want to add the sum to whatever this C is. I want to convert it to int, right? We just assume it's integer. Print that out, and at the very end here, once we are done, we print the sum out. So we can see what the sum looks like. In this case, it should be 6. So we got a total of 6. And just make sure you do the conversion, because we are reading, again, just a string. So now if I ask you to count the number of lines, how would you do it? There's no line count. Sorry, no shortcut. It would be nice, but no. Okay, so you can count the lines. You can also count the number of characters, right? Show you how to do that already. So for line break, I mean, if you do a for loop, every loop here you add one, right? If you want to print how many words in the file, how would you do that? So how many words in here? So a word is, let's just say a word is anything that has a letter or a character. Okay. And then we ignore all white spaces, basically that's it. So you read the first one here, and then if it's a white space, you can say that's one word. Continue on the next one. If it's a white space, ignore that. And if it's a letter, then you do that. But that's kind of hard. You can check every character like that. It's hard. So what you do is you read the entire, one line at a time, and you can split it. Yeah, split with the white space, and then because that white space will not be recorded inside that list. All you get just the number of words, and then you count that based on the length of that list. Okay, so you can do that. What about how many H's in this or O's in this file, right? You can do all those count stuff. Okay. So those are the things that we learned before, right? All this counting stuff. So all those logic you learn and now you can put into use. Any questions? So far so good? It's pretty easy, right? Yeah, that's good. I like it. So now, let's do a write. Okay, we're going to do it right here. And let's write it into a new file. And it's getting messy now, so I'm going to comment all these out here. We're going to use the same file. Let's just say that I'm going to open this quote and then write it into another file with another, I don't know, you can modify a few words in here, replace some words, and then write that to a new file. Okay? So we leave the one as was before, and I'm going to put another print statement here just to show the previous file, the current file. And then I'm going to open it again for reading. And then now I need to read every line. And let's just say we're going to replace a word, or maybe we can remove all the numbers out, and then do something. Well, you know what? Let's just try transferring all these files to another file first. Okay? Yeah, that's just more of like algorithms. But let's just say we're going to read that file for reading only, and we're going to write to a new file. So this will be the out file. We don't have any file in there yet. we're just going to say no quotes dot text, and this is opening for writing. So you can put a W there, or you can put an X. Doesn't matter. X will return an error if it's already existed. So we open that for reading, one for writing, and then now we're going to say what's the simplest way to copy what's inside the quotes to the new quotes file? What do you think? Brent? Yeah, I'm going to transfer what's in the quotes to a new file called new quotes. Exact same content. So basically, you just copy data from one file to another file, right? If I don't want to copy the file, I'm going to copy the content in there.
And you can read it all, but
yeah.
well, you can read the whole file from top to bottom. Transfer it that way, since it's just a text file. There's not much formatting.
Okay, yeah, do that, right? We try that. So you're going to, we can use the variable for now. Just say what data, notice with D or, oh, that's called lines, okay? Lines equal to endfile.read, right? You read everything, store that into a line as a string, and then you just basically write it back to the out file, right? And then you put that inside here, the lines. Okay. And then I think that should be it. And then we're going to go ahead and then what? I want to see what's inside the out file. You can print it out. So let's say, how do you print it? You have to read it again.
Oh, I guess you need to open it again.
Yeah, I have to read it again, right? You have to open it again. So that means, okay, before we do that, we can inspect that in the Explorer. Let's just say we're going to just do that and save it. Okay? Save it and run it. So here you go. Everything's printed. It's good. The new quote is in here, created, and you can double click to open it. So it's not there. I mean, there's no errors, right?
File is there.
Yeah, the file is there. But you have the data. You do have in the new quotes? Mine's not. What did you do different? Okay, so yeah, the old quote is there, the new one is not. And the reason why, maybe you have it accidentally, I'm not sure, but you want to close it. Okay? You have to close it. If you don't close it, that means it's open. So when you are done, the program shuts down, then everything you wrote into the file gets deleted, gets retracted. So you want to seal it when you write to a file. Okay? So just make sure you close that out file. If you don't close it, you're not going to get any data. And so I run it again and see if this works this time. So you see that now it saves us data. Okay. So it's exactly the same copy now. So just make sure after you write, and once you're done writing, you have to close it. Whether you write a single character or everything there, if you don't close it, if you don't seal it, it's like an open bag, right? If you lift it, everything's gonna fall off again. And so, I mean, if you're done reading with this in file, you should close that too. Okay. So that's for writing to the file from one to the next one. You can also write, so let's say I write that to the file, whatever from that file. I can write some more to the file. I can say, again, I want to write outfile.write another message here, another quote. Let's say, winter is here, which is true. It's almost here. Okay, almost here. Okay. Let's write another one. Happy. How to spell Halloween? Is it O or A?
H-A.
H-A? What's the difference? Okay, so I wrote 2 more lines, add to that, and let's save this again. Remember, when you do a write, it's going to wipe out everything what we have inside that file, and then rewrite everything fresh again. Okay, so I'm going to click play, and that's going to replace. I open my new quotes. Okay, so here we see that it's been added to the end of that last line, but notice again, it did not include that character return, the new line. So it appends to the end of that string. Okay, so the previous one, because it came with the line feed, but the last one did not have it. So that, therefore, when you write data to it, you must include the line break in here at the beginning or at the end, whichever you want to put it. So since you are appending to the end of the new file, and that probably no for sure didn't have the character return, you put it in the front here, and then also here as well. It doesn't mean it's going to stick in the front. It will be appended to the end of that previous string. That's the end of that new line. So now if I run it again, you'll see that now the text file is now properly formatted its own line. Okay, so that part is required. You just have to put a /t there. /n for the character return. If you want to tab, you put a /t. Right? You can tab it over for like formatting purposes. Because text file, you know, the space are equally spaced out. Okay, so we learned to write to the file. You can also use the print statement to do that too. Instead of outfile.write, you can actually print to that file. Okay, so I could say I'm going to have another line here before I close it. I'll say print, and then the message here will be like I need a /n and last line of text. And then there's a parameter here. It says outfile equals to, you put the outfile name here, and the outfile name is new quotes dot text. Let's see if it lets us do it. If it's not, it has to be on a separate line. Maybe you want to close it first, but let's see if this will let us do it. So you can use that as well to write to the new file, I think. If I remember the syntax correctly. Yeah, it says it's an error. Is it alpha or is it a file out? I don't remember. Let's see. File out. Or is it just file? I believe it is a file. Let's try one more time. Yeah, I can't remember the keyword there. Let's see. Just file. Okay, fine. Here it is. Just file. Okay, that helps. File. And I think maybe not the actual file name. It has to be that that out file object, I think. It can't be the name of the file. It has to be the stream. So it can be added to the new file. Yeah, so we print it, we got the new, yeah, there you go. And as you can see, there's a line feed at the end, right? There's an extra character return at the end. Do you know why?
Yes. Print always has.
Yeah, that's right. So you're going to remove it,
And
it's goes blank string. That's right. Little things like that can bother you. All right, I think that's pretty much it for the read and write. And I didn't try the X. You can try the X as well. The X should, so if, yeah, you can do it now. If you, for example, put X here and try and see if this works. I think it may throw an error. As you can see, it's already existed, so that's a good sign. If you want to append it to that file only, put A here. So now we can have duplicates in that file. So notice we have that one, 7 lines. We run it, now we should have 14 lines. Okay, I mean 13. It duplicates that. So with the append, we retain what you had earlier and so on. Okay, so it's much simpler. Like in PHP, you have to put like, oh, I'm going to do a append and also a read, right, and a plus, and so on. There's a lot to think about. But Python just one, okay, it's all good, right? Really nice.